pros and cons, you get the aspect of both. You've been a passive investor, you've been an active investor.
Yeah.
I've always been on the active side. My whole perspective has always been active. So to me, it can be a lot of work, but it can also be really rewarding for that work. Passive versus active investors.
That we are. Here we are.
So how about you start off and let us know on a high level view, what's a passive investor and an active investor?
So definition between the two.
Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have. I'm more on the Wikipedia side myself.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
Were you around when encyclopedias were the thing and you didn't have the interwebs?
And when you say the thing, like, you probably didn't get out much, huh? Like, yeah.
I'm from small town Nebraska.
I know.
So no.
Last time we talked about how you went to a beach that someone had brought some sand in. I think it was a few sandbags, and you used to rake it yourself.
And people would pay me money.
Yeah, exactly.
Great business model.
Hey, it sounds wonderful.
So, serious question.
Yeah.
Did you have encyclopedias when you grew up?
We did have some encyclopedias. We had dictionaries.
Dictionaries? Yeah.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up without the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice, fun.
Yeah.
And it was great.
It was
It's a great way to grow up now that I'm
rid of the internet.
Yeah.
You want to?
I'd rather not, thank you.
My mom one time, true story, you can ask my brother, she shut off the internet. She shut it off.
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, her, something was not going right with her computer, and the entire family was back at her house during the holidays, during Christmas. Both my brothers, and this was recently. So we're all back there, holidays, and she just yelled out loud from the family room where she was on her computer that she was shutting down the internet. And we're like, no, don't shut it down. And she did it. She shut it down.
This was recent?
Recent, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know if you were affected by it or if she just meant that she was shutting her internet off or the router off, but I didn't know if it was like a worldwide thing. So
was this 3 Christmases ago? I think I remember something along those lines. Yeah, I got a notification.
Did you?
Yeah, post-it note, I think it was.
She maybe mailed something out.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a snail mail situation. I think the internet actually shut off before I got the notice. Yeah, here we are now.
Okay, so back to the original.
Yeah, here we are. Okay.
Passive versus active.
Passive versus active. So passive, you are an investor. Would be somebody like, working with Cherry Pick Capital like us, or other people that are actively managing, finding, and, closing on these deals, producing a return for investors. Active, on the other hand, is more, as you can imagine, more active, right? You are finding deals, you're managing properties, you're managing property managers. So, you're kind of going through that whole process, and your boots on the ground, you're dealing with the day in, day out, shit, in the end that, pros and cons on both sides for sure, but just acknowledging that, you're kind of in the trenches with it, which, is something that we personally love and enjoy and all of those things, but it also is an acknowledgement of, what you're spending your time and energy and focus toward.
Yeah.
So, definitely kind of pros and cons on both sides. I guess we'll kind of dive into both paths for real estate investors out there. But, from your side, what are some of the pros that you see on the active side?
So yeah, we chatted a little bit about this. You guys might be surprised, even though it's a super professional setup, professional quality. We're new to podcasts, so we talk about, what are we going to talk about in the podcast? So offline, when we're chatting about pros and cons, you get the aspect of both. You've been a passive investor, you've been an active investor.
Yeah.
For me, I've always been on the active side. I do see from the passive side now that we're raising money for our fund to pursue deals, but my whole perspective has always been active. So to me, on the active side, it can be a lot of work, but it can also be really rewarding for that work. There is a lot of upside to where you're directly in control of the deal. When you're when you're active, it's your deal. You can make the decisions on what you want to do for whatever you're doing with that deal, whether it's a fix and flip or holding on to as a rental property or whatnot. A lot of our experiences talk will be kind of based around rentals because that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So with rentals, as an active investor, you get to really dictate, okay, what am I going to do for rehab on this property? Does it make sense to rehab compared to the increased rents I can get, or does it make sense to just keep it the way it is, make it nice and clean and livable, but maybe not updated and get a bit of lower rent? So there's definitely some stuff that goes into what you do when you acquire a rental property and the numbers, but that's all up to you as an active investor. There's really no outside influence per se on it. So with a lot of that decision making and whatnot, like I mentioned, you get the upside. You get all the upside. You get all the equity, all the cash flow, which kind of leads me to also a con of it, which is your next question, right?
Well, I was going to kind of elaborate on that point as well, though, that you're an active investor, you're spending that time and energy toward it. And then you have, kind of your decision if you want, hey, I want to go sell this property now rather than later. Hey, I want to go buy something else or buy a primary house or just want cash to go on a trip to Mexico, whatever you want to do, it's your choice. Which is, I think one of those big benefits on the active side.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to: is you acquire the asset, you fix it up, and again, we're talking about rentals. Fix it up, you rent it out, and then is it something that you want to sell right away within a few years and take advantage of the sweat equity that you put in and appreciation and whatnot?
Yeah.
Or is it something you want to hold on to long term and let the tenants pay down the debt? So when you're solo, you're active on your own, yeah, you're in control of that, but even having a partner in on it can definitely change that dynamic on making sure you guys are on the same page about what you want to do long-term wise. Getting into a deal together, you got to be thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years plus down the road on what you really want to do before you jump in on a partnership with somebody. So
yeah, it's a mini marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
Really, right? You're
about the intimacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah, and then again, what I was going to segue into the cons. There's definitely some cons to it, and me personally, when I was in the beginning, it's like this is all in my control, which I just said was a benefit, but at the same time, it's like you start to kind of question yourself: is this the best thing to do this amount of rehab? Should I rent it out at this price, or should I hold out and try to get a higher price out of the rental?
Yeah.
Should I refinance? Should I sell? It's like, it's nice to have that control, but at the same time, it's also nice to have others' input and or have that decision, I don't want to say be made on your behalf, but you're not so much in control of it, and you can have other people to give you their 2 cents on what's best.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the pros and cons kind of play off each other a little bit, right? So in the end, if we were to look at kind of, pros, cons on the passive side, on the con side, let's say you're subjected to what the others want to do, what for like, investing in Cherry Pick, for instance, it's what the general partners think is what's best for the fund, but also an investor takes it upon themselves to say, hey, you guys are experts in the field, and we trust in what you're doing. Again, I guess it comes down to, on the passive side, con is that you don't have the flexibility of saying, look, I really want to sell now, or want to move that money somewhere else. So there's kind of, more of a team environment rather than an individual. Pros on the passive side, though, for one, you're investing with experts, making sure, whether that's, of course, us or someone else or whatever, you want to do your due diligence, and you hope you're investing with the experts, right? People like us that know what they're doing and are in the trenches, have seen, the successes, the failures, and what has worked and what hasn't.
Been through the ups and downs.
Yeah. And then you think about, even scalability, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
if I'm going to go invest by myself, maybe I go buy 1 or 2 properties, and then I'm also subjected to those 1 or 2. I don't have diversification, and now all of a sudden both of my tenants just left and I don't have income coming in.
Yeah.
So I think that's, a big piece of this is that I think a lot of people, including myself, as I had jumped in initially, is like, oh, I'm gonna, crush this and it's gonna be swimmingly. And then it's like, oh, I had this big, my water heater went out and then a tree fell in my front yard.
Yeah.
That cost me $3,000 to remove a massive tree that ripped up my driveway. And that's my fault. It's like,
That did happen at your place then.
yeah, that was mine.
Places I think I sold you one of your first turnkey rentals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you think about that if it was, a bigger deal, something that has more properties, more doors, things like that. You get the diversity that if one property went down, you have all of these other doors to subsidize that.